I would like to introduce you. So we had a campaign trying to get more people to join, new young people to join, not that older people because they bring wisdom, but also new people bring fresh ideas and keep people involved. She's one of our newest members to GSRC. And so she's going to be talking to us about mental health. Her name is Annmarie. And before you say it, our website is outdated because we don't know on the team what we're doing because we don't have an IT person, unless one of y'all join. However, Annmarie is taking on that challenge, so hopefully sometime by the end of the year, give you enough space and gap, by the end of this year, we'll have a better, easy to use and navigate website. So I thank you for taking that on, and I thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Jasmine, for introducing me. So, good morning. It is an honor to be speaking with you today. My name is Annmarie, and I am proud to say that I have been a respiratory therapist for over a decade now. I started my journey early, as I dual enrolled in the 12th grade and graduated as a respiratory therapist at the young age of 20. I'm originally from Orlando, Florida. Go, Linda! And I have been a part of the Georgia family for 4 years. I never knew about respiratory therapy until my mother told me that when she was younger, she would get sick because she had asthma and couldn't breathe. And even in Trinidad and Tobago, where she was born, she was rushed to the hospital to get the care she needed. I became a respiratory therapist because my mother has asthma and I wanted to help people. When I graduated in 2012, I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed to make a difference for my patients. I passed my boards the first time and became a registered respiratory therapist. My first 3 years as a respiratory therapist was tough. I just graduated and had taken my boards, but I didn't feel prepared to work in the real hospital. It felt like I was encountering dragons and I didn't know how to deal with the feeling of doing everything you can, but still seeing patients die. I'll tell you a story that happened after I had been an RT for 1 year. One day I was thrown into the NICU as a new grad by myself. It was scary. They said NICU never calls us. But guess what? That day they called. And I called the lead therapist, but he was unavailable, doing the count for the next shift. As I walked to the NICU, I felt my anxiety brewing. What am I going to do? I asked myself. I had no training and I was scared out of my mind. I went into the bathroom and tears started coming through my eyes. I called the lead again. It was Francine, my mentor respiratory therapist, and she answered. She said she'll be there. She helped me with the baby and the baby was okay. I had a moment of relief. There were other times in my career when I was ecstatic to be a respiratory therapist. For example, when I educated a patient on how to use their inhaler correctly, I went through all of the steps of using a spacer, and they said that no one explained to them that they should do it that way. Within my career, I have lost patients and saved patients. I have even gotten my neonatal pediatric specialty credential. And I got to work at the NICU and have confidence that I could do my job well. I've also had to deal with being short-staffed, feeling like I just can't be at more than one place at the same time, and trying to triage every patient. But what do you do when everyone is sick? Who do you see first? Just recently, when I was working the night shift, I received a report from a therapist that was leaving early. She came in extra to help when another RT called out. She could only dedicate 6 hours of her time, so she was giving me a report at 1 a.m. She told me about one patient in particular that the nurse had called and said the patient was having trouble breathing. So she told me he just got a breathing treatment. and that there was a BiPAP at bedside just in case he needs it. This patient was also an end-stage lung cancer patient. So about an hour and a half later, I was eating my lunch, and I got a call from the same nurse. Her name is Cynthia. The patient in 262 is having problems breathing again, she stated, and I could hear in the background the patient yelling, "I can't breathe." I said that I'm on my way. I quickly scarfed down my last bite of my KFC chicken tender, took a huge gulp of my iced energy drink, and I walked briskly to the patient's room. I walked into the room and saw the patient. He was scrunched up in the bed with his hands frozen in place. The nurse called the stat team, and they also came to assess the patient. He looked like he was having a seizure. The nurse and I repositioned the patient. His hands went down to his side. The nurse called out the patient's name to try to get a response from him. Nothing. We checked for a pulse. I couldn't feel a pulse. The nurse couldn't feel a pulse, so we started CPR. Code Blue was called. Code Blue, room 262. Code Blue, room 262. Code Blue, room 262. Cynthia took over CPR, and my coworkers came to my aid and started bagging the patient. Seconds later, everyone was in the room, the doctor and more nurses, and we ran the code for about an hour. Sadly, the patient didn't make it. Time of death, 03:53. I walked away and I remembered his last words were, "I can't breathe." I know we did everything we could to save him, but I still felt emotionally and mentally drained by the situation. I know many of you have stories that match my story. You have given your all throughout your career, but what do you do when you go home and you have to deal with your own life story? And this is what I'm here to talk to you about today. Healing the invisible wounds, addressing burnout, moral injury, and mental health for respiratory therapists. Something that's supposed to be just a job for some and a career for others. Having to deal with the world on your shoulders is a lot for anyone, especially healthcare heroes. We were heroes during the pandemic, but it seems like some are suffering in silence. Since I know this topic is heavy, I want to add a little spin to my presentation. So who has seen The House of Dragon on HBO or The Game of Thrones? Okay, so I want you to imagine you are playing a game as a commoner in a city and you work at the NBRC hospital. Everything is going great. The doctor listens to everything you say, no one touches your ventilator, you're fully staffed, and everything goes your way. You also have a great home life, and everyone is happy and perfect. Then, all of a sudden, a dragon comes to the city. It's really huge. It's breathing fire everywhere, and you heard that it's coming to destroy the city. In this level of the game, the dragon represents moral injury, burnout, mental health, and the stigma behind speaking up. So we will name the character Charlie, and let's choose his fate. Charlie can escape the city, defend the city, or attack the dragon. So by a show of hands, who wants to let Charlie escape the city? By a show of hands, who wants Charlie to defend the city? Okay. And who wants Charlie to attack the dragon? Okay, we got some attackers in here. So you may not be familiar with these terms, but I'll go over them quickly so you know what kind of destruction the dragon brings with it. Some of the things the dragon brings is moral injury. And according to Psychology Today, moral injury is the social, psychological, and spiritual harm that arises from a betrayal of one's core values, such as justice, fairness, and loyalty. Failing to protect others through error or inaction, and failure to be protected by leaders. This can all wound a person's conscience, leading to lasting anger, guilt, and shame, and can fundamentally alter one's worldview and impair the ability to trust others. So an example of moral injury could be that we leave the department with 15 or more treatments, and they want us to see every patient in that hour window. But if every treatment takes 15 minutes or more, and you have 15 people to see, that's at least 150 minutes, and it doesn't include any emergencies like codes or intubations, which could cause you to see your scheduled patients late, or not be able to see them at all. This thought of not being able to see all of your patients within the scheduled time is an example of moral injury. Next, the dragon brings burnout. So according to the World Health Organization, burnout is a chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It is characterized by 3 dimensions: feelings of depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job, feelings of negativity or cynicism related to one's job, reduced professional efficacy. How many of you can relate to this? Yeah. Okay. Having high workloads consistently and being short-staffed can lead to burnout and can add to the moral injury. So to add to moral injury and burnout, the dragon brings the stigma. It's like no one sees this dragon and they don't want to deal with it or talk about it. When it's mentioned, they gaslight you and say that it's your fault. And guess what? This dragon gets bigger and bigger every day and breeds more dragons. So where did this dragon come from? It was exacerbated by the pandemic, but there are also many other reasons. Some people are retiring because of burnout, and they're tired of being short-staffed, and sometimes it can be caused by interpersonal trauma and PTSD. How has it been allowed to get this bad? A few reasons could be that we work in a broken healthcare system, and it's not taught in school in the real world. And sometimes the healthcare facilities push the agenda that we should soldier on and compartmentalize. So some of you decided to let Charlie escape, right? So where does Charlie go? He goes to another environment that's safer and healthier. What does he take with him? He takes everything that he has learned and all the equipment that he's used. What is the cost? Starting over from the beginning can be difficult, and it might be that the grass is not greener on the other side in a different city. And sometimes people sometimes when you are a new person in a city, they can ostracize you because you're the new person. So do you want to know what happened to Charlie? So Charlie chose to escape. He found another city, but the dragon came there too and destroyed the city. So, do we want to try again? We have at least 2 more lives. So let's say Charlie defends the city. The city is supportive. They take concerns into consideration, and they have invested in their employees' future. And they also show appreciation. This may be why Charlie wants to stay and defend the city. It's worth defending and putting in all of the work. And also his kids go to school there, and he has developed roots, and it would be more difficult for him to pull up those roots and move to a totally different city. So to prepare for the dragon, the city and the hospital, Charlie utilizes the employee assistance program, speaks up in meetings. He suggests the NBRC hospital offer bonuses and incentives for working extra and also allow self-scheduling. In the end, Charlie felt heard, and they were able to stand against the dragon for a short time. But the city was reactive instead of being proactive, and the walls didn't hold. There was also a cost of staying put. Charlie did not get any career movement, and it was just a bandage on the problem. So we have one life left. Let's attack the dragon. Charlie's best line of attack is banding together and partnering, and he recruited other RTs from other cities to help. He used his voice to start a conversation about mental health in the workplace. He also partnered with the NBRC hospital. He lobbied in government to change policies and procedures. He wrote letters to CEO, and by doing this, he cut off the head of the dragon, and he was victorious. He also mentored the incoming generations to make sure that they were ready in case more dragons came. So how do we relate this game to regular life? I started this presentation with having to deal with a dying patient, and I know many of you have had patients like that as well. But I realized when I became a patient at a mental health facility that I am my most important patient. If I don't take care of me, then I won't be able to take care of others. And this is when I started my adventure. I've traveled to work to Hawaii, Alaska, California, and this is a picture of me walking on a glacier in Alaska and climbing a mountain in Alaska. And now I've made my home in Georgia. I've also traveled to Paris, France, seen Anne Frank's hiding place in Amsterdam. I backpacked around Europe alone for 10 days, and it was an exhilarating experience. I even got lost on the train in Germany and went the opposite direction. I also helped with open heart surgeries in Nigeria. It was a very eye-opening experience. We did 25 open heart cases, 14 pediatric and 11 adult, 12 cardiac cath procedures, 1 pacemaker implantation, and there were 51 volunteer medical professionals. And guess how many RTs there were? Double that, too. So there was 1 pediatric RT, and I was the second RT, and we did multiple shifts, and I did like 24 hours. I've never done that before. Like, my feet and ankles were swelling up. It was a very exhilarating and interesting experience, and I recommend it if you want to do that in the future. I also take breaks. So I do go on vacations. I also have a therapist and a psychiatrist, and I also have coaches. I have family support and support from my friends. I make sure to use all of the resources that are around me because I want to fight for myself. And just because I'm up here doesn't mean that I have everything all together. I just went to work and I realized that my pants are inside out. So I do the 60-40 rule, so I make sure that I do at least 60%, and progression is better than perfection. I also set healthy boundaries. So when they call and ask me to work extra, guess what I say? Exactly, I do not pick up extra. I did that earlier in my career, but I just realized that there's a world out there, and I want to see the world while I'm living and not be regretting dying I don't want to regret not being able to live out the world if something happened to me. I also laugh, and I do hypnosis, and I'm a very spiritual person. I'm here now talking to you because I escaped, but I'm back to use my voice and share my story. I want to attack the dragon because I know we are great people and we have great hearts. I don't want anyone to suffer in silence anymore. So here are some real life stats dealing with the real life dragons. This is a survey by Mental Health America, where they surveyed thousands of healthcare workers, and these are the results. So they say 93% of healthcare workers reported being stressed out and stretched too thin. That's really close to 100%. And also 82% shared being mentally and physically exhausted. And 45% of nurses reported that they were not getting enough emotional support. Other studies during the pandemic found that 22% of healthcare workers experienced moderate depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. And 69% of physicians reported experiencing depression, and 13% had thoughts of suicide. Nurses on the front line and younger workers reported more psychological symptoms than other healthcare workers. So now, you are the character in your own story. Will you choose to escape, defend, or attack the dragon? And it's okay if you do all three in any combination you choose. So here are some definitions to help you decide if you need to escape. So the signs of burnout is feelings of exhaustion and cynicism, decreased effectiveness at work, and lack of accomplishment. The signs of compassion fatigue is diminished ability to empathize with patients or clients and a sense of emotional numbness. These symptoms can also lead to depression and anxiety, and you can have emotional and physical symptoms such as headaches and stomach issues. There's also moral injury, which is the betrayal of one's core values such as justice, fairness, and loyalty. So when I say escape, it could mean that you take PTO and you enjoy your days off and you don't pick up any extra shifts when they call. This is where setting healthy boundaries comes in. Or it can mean a more permanent escape, a different job sector, or travel RT. When you think you need to escape, think of these things. Regroup, restabilize, and refocus. When we regroup, we take inventory of what we have. We identify where we are and we reorient ourselves. Are you in a toxic place? Are your concerns being addressed? Then we restabilize. We get our feet grounded. We take care of ourselves. And did you know that there are 6 different types of self-care? It's not just bubble baths. There's physical self-care, which is exercising, going to the dentist, going to the doctor, and is your home organized? Do you need to declutter? There's also emotional self-care. And for this is what emotions are coming up. There are 27 of them. And if it's too much to handle on your own, you can seek therapy, find a trusted family or friend and who can help you. EAP is underutilized in 97% of businesses, and only 5.5% of employees use them. Employee assistance programs typically deal with a much wider range of issues, including depression, stress, drug abuse, relationship problems, and career issues. Also, health and wellness, financial and legal concerns. Employees should also see EAP as a solution in the workplace for issues that are not just limited to work. So, all of these things, you need to fight for your life like you fight for your patients. So get the care that you need, get the resources that you need, and ask for help when you need it. There's also social self-care, so spending time with friends, and if you have problems making friends, try being friendly. There are also spiritual self-care. So it doesn't have to be religious. It can be affirmations. You can have gratitude practices. Just believing in something bigger than yourself is okay. There's also financial self-care. So have you looked at your retirement? Have you looked at your savings? What goals do you have for vacations in the future? And my favorite is intellectual. So what have you learned recently? What documentaries have you looked at? Have you learned a new skill? Do you want to learn how to play the piano, or do you want to learn how to crochet? The next is refocus, and that is the big picture. Where do you want to be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years? And also look at the little picture of how you will achieve your goal in the amount of years that you decide. What little steps can you take to reach your goals? I love how far medicine has come, and fixing something simple as a dislocated shoulder or something as complicated as open heart surgery. But I also like painting, singing, and just anything dealing with being creative. And this is why I have decided to come back from my escape. After I have restabilized myself, I can now fight for the cause. And since I'm a newly member of GSRC, I'm ready to use my voice and recruit others into starting the conversation of mental health, burnout, and compassion fatigue. I want to stomp out the stigma behind speaking up. And here are some tips if you are on shift and you need some help in the moment. So we all heard that laughter is the best medicine, and sometimes you have to laugh to keep from crying. Laughter also releases endorphins, and you don't need a stimulus. You don't have to watch a comedy show. Your brain can't tell the difference. So let's do an exercise. Let's test it. So, if you say ha 10 times, then you will start laughing spontaneously. So let's do it together. Ha, 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 ha. So I guess it works. And if you can't laugh and if you can't laugh and you're in public, you can also take a break. You can ask for help while you're on shift. Ask your coworkers to help, because sometimes when you are not busy, we all help our other coworkers as well. So if we all are a team and we work together, we'll be able to accomplish the tasks that we need. We can also take a deep breath, because we are respiratory therapists. We tell people how to breathe, but sometimes even myself, I forget to breathe. And you can also take an ice water face bath. So you can shock your system and spray ice water or cold water on your face, and it reduces your heart rate and it promotes a relaxation response. You can also take a walk, and you can do jumping jacks so that you can get the anxiety out. So, if you want to defend and attack the dragon, be sensitive and recognize that burnout and compassion fatigue can be sensitive topics, and that some people may be hesitant to talk about it. Be sure to approach the conversation with empathy and understanding. You can also share your own experience. If you have experienced burnout or compassion fatigue yourself, share your own experience and how you coped with it. This can help to create a safe and open space for conversation. You can also offer support. Let your coworkers know that you are there to support them if they are experiencing burnout or compassion fatigue. Offer to help them find resources or talk through any concerns they may have. You can encourage self-care. Talk about the importance of self-care and stress management in preventing burnout and compassion fatigue. Encourage your coworkers to take breaks and to find activities that help them relax and recharge. You can start a support group. You can suggest starting a support group for coworkers who have experienced burnout or compassion fatigue. Having a safe space to talk about these issues can be helpful. You can also promote a healthy work environment. Discuss ways to promote a healthy work environment that encourages work-life balance and prevent burnout and compassion fatigue. And lastly, you can raise the awareness. Talk to the management and HR about the importance of addressing the issue of burnout and compassion fatigue, and advocate for policies and practices that support employee well-being. So in closing, I hope that I educated you about the signs and symptoms of burnout and compassion fatigue, and provided strategies for preventing and managing these conditions. I hope that I inspired you to become an advocate for improved access to mental health care within your organization and community. I also hope that I encourage you to incorporate self-care strategies in your daily routine and provided specific tips for maintaining mental wellness on a daily basis. So what's next? So I have a Facebook group that supports healthcare workers, and I'm coming out with a book called The Dragon Slayer's Guide to Healthcare, and it will cover the topics that I discussed today. You can scan this code and you will be accepted in the Facebook community. If you're not interested in going online and you still want the book, you can contact me directly after this presentation. So I have discussed a lot of things, and sometimes when you're at work, it's hard to remember what I just said because we are busy and we just can't remember it all. So I have these badge tags that have wellness healthcare tips for on the go. And if this will play, I will bow out and thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this.